Good morning. I think we're started. Yeah. Welcome to the commission meeting for February 17th, 2026. I call our meeting to order. We do have a quorum of commissioners present. Commissioner Blyenberg may be a little late. She is absent right now. Again, call the meeting to order and ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Look for a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on, we have our consent agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on any item on our consent agenda? All the items on our consent agenda are available in the auditor's office, public record. Commissioners, anybody want to pull any item or comment on any item on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Penega,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Heisey,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to our regular business. We have a presentation from the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance, and it says Tyler's up first. Good morning, Tyler.
Well, good morning, commissioners, members of the public too. We appreciate the opportunity to annually come before you, first and foremost, and tell you thank you. Thank you for your longstanding membership. I think we're year 35 or 36 now with you guys too. As you guys know, our origin started as the Minnehaha County Economic Development Association, McKeeta back in the day, before rebranding in 2021 as the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance. So thank you for, and I think all of you guys have participated and attended some of our various events throughout the year. And so we just appreciate the continued partnership and participation with our stuff on top of just membership through supporting our organization too. So I got a couple slides for you, give a little bit of a background on and a little bit of a refresher on kind of what we do, why we exist, who we serve, and then some examples of some of the things that we do throughout the year. Recapping a little bit from last year, kind of where we're at today, and a little bit of a preview for what's ahead. I'm joined by one of my colleagues too. We're a lean mean team of 6. Bryce Healy, he said he's going to be the eye candy today, which is why he's in the back of the room, but he's with us too in case I get out of hand too. So anyway, appreciate the opportunity. So our membership of who we serve, again, our origins go back to 1990 with McKeeta. 1997, we added Lincoln County, which was LaKeeta, that acronym, which is what we live in a world of acronyms. We have since rebranding in 2021, expanded to McCook and Turner County as well. Union County is not an official member, but we have added a couple other communities, and some ebb and flow. For example, Baltic was a founding member. They have taken a couple-year hiatus, but they're looking at maybe possibly coming back into the mix. But you can see on the slide there, those are the members that we currently serve. 17 municipalities in 4 counties in kind of the greater Sioux Falls metro footprint. So those are our members. And then a little over a year ago, historically we've been backed by utility partners and regional banks. They used to call them investors. We call them corporate partners. We have, January of last year, expanded that to anybody who cares about growth in the region. People that want to support our mission, which our mission is to empower our communities to grow. So we have engineer, architect firms, construction companies. You can see the list, and that list continues to grow. And what that does too is just provide strength for our organization by having more resource partners to be able to get connected with. More people that care about what's happening in our rural communities and in the county too, instead of just what's happening exclusively in Sioux Falls. And so we love bringing people together. A whole bunch of what we do is collaboration and communication and bringing people together. And I like to say that, our team, we're here to be a nonprofit resource for anybody. I mean, exclusively, or not exclusively, but for, again, county, you guys as commissioners, the staff, city councils, mayors, city staff, local economic development organizations in the small towns, chambers of commerce, business owners, Main Street or large employers and manufacturers, landowners, really anybody and everybody. If anybody has a question, our team is here to be able to help find an answer. And if we don't have it, odds are we have somebody within our network that does. And so we just want to be kind of the ultimate resource for the region widely. So like I said, we were a one-person operation for about 30 years. Now we're a team of 6. You can see some of their faces up there. We operate, again, in our territory, just here to help. Some of the examples of kind of what we do, it's hard to really narrow it down. I could probably spend all day talking to you guys about all the different things that we do. There's a lot that we're doing. Every day is different, but there's a lot that we're doing kind of behind the scenes, working on projects, working with prospective businesses, working with existing businesses, succession planning, expansion opportunities, navigating and researching kind of what grant or loan opportunities maybe exist, all of the alike. But really to try to boil it down to kind of 5 bullet points, we really exist to help advise our members on kind of all things growth. Sometimes that can be tough love, where we can come before a city council or come before you guys and just say, hey, we think that there's a policy here within your guys' control that we should maybe take a second look at that maybe could be a prohibitor to strategic, responsible growth that we want to see. Sometimes it's new trends that we're seeing. Sometimes it's research and data. It could widely vary, but really advising on members on all things growth and kind of being there to provide that regional lens when it comes to economic development and kind of business sense. Public policy advocacy, there's a couple different examples of that. I'll give you one example a little bit later, but we don't necessarily employ kind of a lobbyist or anything like that, but we maintain good government relations, again, with all levels of government, local, county, state, and federal partners. So that way we can help provide our membership an additional platform and an additional access to decision makers at all levels of government too. And then we can also weigh in when there's things that impact our region overall, not just, again, Sioux Falls, but maybe a couple communities in our area that need additional attention. We can get involved that way. Like I mentioned, the regional connectivity and collaboration, we do that through a variety of different fronts, through a lot of our events, but also our regular meetings. So every month we meet. All of our membership has a seat on our membership advisory board, as well as all of our utility partners and a couple at-large seats. That membership advisory board helps guide our kind of vision and our operations, and then brings people together to share updates. We have a lot of ex officio members that serve on that advisory board too, including representatives from our congressional offices, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and the Sioux Falls Development Foundation too. So really an opportunity for everybody to share what's happening in the area and to find those best practices. Another one that we're really fond of is our monthly Mayor's Roundtable, we call it, our monthly Mayor's Meeting. We get our 17 mayors, have a standing invite once a month to get together, more of a private setting just for them to have coffee and to trade notes and kind of build that camaraderie with each other in that seat. And then in addition, the mayor of Sioux Falls has the opportunity to join in on that as well. Some of the marketing and promotions for some of our small towns, regardless of wherever they're at in their growth journey. So some of our communities are population 400 all the way to our largest members, which are like Brandon, Harrisburg, and T. Some of them, or almost all of them, don't have a public affairs office, if you will. So our organization can also assist with media relations. Whenever there are really good stories to be able to try to get out, we want to be able to help celebrate those wins in that community. So giving them an additional platform, marketing their events. If we can help encourage additional sales tax growth in that community through tourism and other people shopping local and supporting local businesses, that can make a big difference for those municipal governments as well too, on top of just growing the tax base. So again, promoting annual events, Jesse James Days, Teapot Days, things like that. All of our membership through SMGA has automatic membership into the Economic Development Professionals Association of South Dakota, EDPA, and then Southeast South Dakota Tourism. Another thing we added 2 years ago was that if you're a member of SMGA, you're automatically a member of Southeast South Dakota Tourism as well. A lot of our small towns have community campgrounds, have state parks, have, again, some unique businesses that we want to encourage people as they're passing through and visiting the area to go shop and support local. And then a lot of events, we also joke that we're kind of an event company a couple times out of the year. Well, we put on a lot of things that bring people together. Again, we appreciate you guys participating in a lot of those. I have some slides that'll kind of show recap of some of those events. I'll hit on a couple just broader project organizational updates, and then a few data slides kind of just for the fun of it as we were researching some of our updated stats as they come out. So I'll just hit on kind of three broad ones, but this one is a USDA rural development. We're dabbling in about 3 different federal grants at the present moment. Before you guys, probably a year or two ago, I announced we were successful in getting a $23 million grant through the EPA for a regional wastewater conveyance system with the communities of Hartford, Colton, Crooks, and Lyons. That project is underway. We're still in the kind of initial planning stage, if you will. The PER stands for Preliminary Engineering Report, but we have engaged in that process. The federal government has been a little slow at some points that have kind of delayed us a little bit from where we wanted to be, but we're excited to make some significant progress in this year, and we'll continue to keep you updated as that project comes to fruition, because that's going to be a big one for those communities and for the region. Going back up a bullet, the USDA Rural Development Business Grant, we were successful. It's a 1-year grant where we are doing, we've contracted with a consultant to help us get South Dakota's first BDO zone rating, which is a kind of a, I'm trying to think of that acronym now, but it's like a biodiversity opportunity zone, kind of a biofuel development, that's what it is, biofuel development opportunity zone rating. It would be the first rating in South Dakota, specifically looking at corn and corn stover availability in the area. So we're in the kind of the data collection and kind of stakeholder engagement phase. We hope to have a report and a final rating announced this summer, and then some marketing and promotion. But what it will do is create in the county area, it'll cover the whole Sioux Metro radius, so Lincoln and Minnehaha County as well, to see what kind of additional value-added agriculture opportunities might exist out there for additional industry. Depending on that rating and that report, we can then amplify that to a global audience to see what kind of interest there might be in some new technology and some new businesses in some of our industrial parks and some of our communities. So more to come on that when that report comes out. And then again, there'll be some promotion of that. And then a lot of the stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis behind the scenes is just the prospect activity. The Governor's Office of Economic Development gets leads on different businesses that are looking to expand in South Dakota, or businesses that are looking to relocate to South Dakota, and what their needs are. We're looking for an existing building of this size. We're looking for a site of this size and this utility needs and that kind of thing. We continue to do that and help respond to those RFIs on behalf of our membership when they do arise. But we've also worked a lot more in the last year on being in a position to generate our own leads. And so, again, sometimes there's small businesses in our small town that already are here that are looking for, how do I get to that next stage? How do I get access to additional capital to add a couple more manufacturing lines at my existing plant? Sometimes it is businesses in other states nearby that are wanting to leave their higher tax and higher regulatory environment states and want to relocate at this area. They see the Sioux Falls region as being really strong. They want to jump in and make an investment and relocate here. We can help assist in making sure that the right project goes in the right spot, in the right community that's a good fit all the way around, that is also going to be a good neighbor. And so I view it as economic development the right way. And so we're pleased to be an assistant in that. So a couple quick data slides, and then I do want to save some time for any questions that you guys may have. So again, none of the stuff is probably going to be a surprise to you at all, but just the population growth. This shows you some of the top states that are contributing to South Dakota's population growth. We're still a phenomenal place to live, work, and raise a family. So the Sioux Falls MSA specifically just continues to outpace state and national trends as far as population growth. Again, you've probably heard it before too, but 1/3 of the state's population is in our Sioux Metro footprint, and specifically 22.6% of South Dakota resides in Minnehaha County as well. Just some other kind of economic data that we just got through some of the updated reports a little over a week ago. as I was looking at it for the county specific, just kind of a snapshot in time, looking a 20-year time frame, so 2004 to the most recent data that was out in 2024, you can see the county population has grown from just a little over 155,000 up to 208,000. And then GDP too also rose from 9.6 billion in the county up to 22.4 billion. So I mean, your county means business and continues to grow, and I think the right way. And again, we were pleased to be a partner in that growth. And then even personal incomes too, more than doubled there. If you look at it, personal incomes per capita in Minnehaha County specifically over a 20-year time frame, going from a little over 35,000 up to 78,000. This one's kind of a fun, just commuter slide that we like to use and kind of share and remind people of why we're all in this together, why our small towns are a benefit to Sioux Falls, and why our small towns also benefit from Sioux Falls. The average commute time, it helps having an 80-mile-per-hour interstate and having good roads and highways, but the average commute time kind of anywhere in the Sioux Metro footprint is just under 20 minutes. So when you think about that, I think I've shared that before in this group. I live on the southeast part of Sioux Falls, but sometimes it's quicker for me to pop down to Canton for some, to go to a restaurant, or Harrisburg or Lenox or Brandon, compared to going to the other side of Sioux Falls, right? Depending on how traffic is and the street lights are. So it's kind of fun to say, really, it kind of takes you 20 minutes or less to kind of get anywhere around here, which we appreciate. So we don't have people just sitting and stuck in traffic. But the other point is about 38% of the Sioux Falls labor force actually commutes into the city. And so, again, just thinking about that from why our surrounding communities, why our Sioux Metro member communities play an integral part into the big city of Sioux Falls, and vice versa. Going back to that public policy advocacy piece, this was just one example. Last year, there was some of the legislation that was in the 11th hour of peer, that was that cap on growth. And then also just some of the property tax discussion and the property tax task force. We were able to lead a letter with our partners at the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, and then with the cities of kind of the big four, Sioux Falls, Brandon, T, and Harrisburg, to get them together to pen a letter to that task force, just encouraging, hey, one size doesn't fit all. As you guys are weighing different options, please make sure that you keep our communities and this footprint, in mind, and lean on us to be able to be a resource and to help, because the challenges in certain communities in other parts of the state might be different than here. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that avenue to engage with them as well. A couple photos just to kind of highlight some of the various events that we do throughout the year. There's some of our regular standing ones, like our 2 bus tours that we do in May and in August, our annual kind of golf classic, which is not just just an outing. It's really kind of meant to connect people. All of our events, we say, have a networking or an educational component to it, have a purpose. We put on roundtables throughout the year that are different subject matter pieces or different presenters that come in. And again, our government relations engagement. So getting some time with our membership, with the congressional delegation directly, with the governor. We had Governor Roden in town after last legislative session. It would have been about April last year. Again, our annual bus tour, the origins of our bus tours now, and that's gotten really popular, started with the county and having the county commissioners and staff, and the opportunity in May to be able to get out and go see what's happening in some of our county communities. We're looking forward to doing that again with you guys in May. Again, just some of the other photos. We added a new event. This year will mark our 3rd year of doing our Sioux Metro Clay Classic. It's a sporting clay tournament out at Hunters Point in Humboldt. That's going to turn into a scholarship fundraiser as well too, for some other stuff that we're excited to be announcing here in a few short months. But just another opportunity to bring business and city and county people together to showcase and show the opportunities that exist across the region, regardless of the size of the community or how rural it may be. And then we're there to help champion those wins when they do happen, helping with ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings for various events, projects big and small. There was a couple last year that we were able to partner with, like up in Del Rapids, a new custom meat market that's going to be opening up, Schmidt's Custom Meat. There's just a variety of different ones as they come and happen. Whether it's just us coming in to help plan the event, to help celebrate that win and bringing the community together because we have gold shovels and a gold scissors, or whether it's us actually working that project with the client from day one, from ideation all the way to the grand opening and kind of setting up operations. Our annual Growth Summit is our largest event of the year. It's our annual Economic Development Conference in December. A couple years ago, we tried to pick one subject and kind of do a deep dive. A couple years ago, it was all on housing, and that was in Brandon. The year before that was all on water, kind of a deep dive on water and where we've been and where we're at, where we're going. This last December, was on all things energy. It was on AI and data centers. We brought in a keynote speaker on nuclear. We had a panel on renewable energy. We had just kind of the basics of kind of power generation, distribution, transmission, Power 101, and then did a legislative preview as well. We kind of exceeded expectations and sold out, I say, a couple times. It's hard for us to just tell people no. That event sold out, and then if they asked, we found a couple additional seats. And we don't have a subject figured out yet for next year. We have some survey feedback. We have some ideas brewing. But if you have any suggestions on what you want to see for that kind of conference or for some of our roundtables, let us know. We're happy to put that together. But we appreciate your guys' participation in some of that as well, too. And then these are photos from last year, but it's our event that's coming up the quickest. Our annual meeting and awards banquet where we get to celebrate the wins from the previous year and celebrate some of the people and communities and businesses that help make our region so strong. That's going to be March 18th, 2026 at the Country Club of Sioux Falls. You guys are all invited. We'll send out formal kind of invites here within the next week or so, but just wanted to get that date on your calendar too. And we're still doing our podcasts and our marketing and our news stories and our social stuff and our quarterly magazine that we produce where we get to help tell the stories and spotlight some of our communities too. This should be hitting your mailbox this week if you haven't got it already. But with that, again, a huge thank you first and foremost. And we're here to be a resource to not only you guys, but your staff and then any residents of the county as well.
Thank you, Tyler. Stand by for questions from the commission. We do take public comment before we go to the commission. Anybody from the public like to comment on this presentation to the commission? All right. I'm fortunate. I'm the liaison to Sioux Metro Growth and active in the leadership there. So, all these things that Tyler talked about, it really boils down to most people would think that our communities compete with each other, and maybe on a certain level they do, but SMGA really is the tide that raises all the boats. I mean, Tyler and his staff and all the communities that benefit from membership in SMGA and those that maybe aren't members are still benefiting. So the work done there is really huge for our community. So thank you. Any other questions or comments for Tyler? Commissioner Kipling.
Thanks for being here, Tyler. Obviously, the big item in the news this week is the retention of Smithfield. I guess maybe we could frame it that way as retaining a major employer rather than you mentioned the idea of identifying entities to bring them into our area. But I was going to just maybe ask you a two-part question, just your macro view of that for the region rather than just that will be in the city limits of Sioux Falls. But obviously, as you noted in your stats on commuters coming in and out, we're an interconnected element. So just the news of the week, what you're hearing from your membership, how does that help our rural partners? And then at the more micro, those big elements get the headlines and the coverages and big press conferences, but can you give us a couple, just small wins of a retention or, a small expansion in a community? What are just some success stories over the last year that maybe aren't of that profile of a Smithfield, but in some sense from an economic development blocking and tackling should be celebrated in a similar way?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the question too. So on the news of the week, the big announcement yesterday, I would say, our origin kind of goes back to instead of the communities kind of being on an island by themselves, wanting to say, you know what, we're not gonna land everything, but if our neighbor community gets it, that's a win for the region overall. So kind of having that regional mindset overall is really good, and that's really strong. I think it's probably the best it's ever been right now with our communities. I think that mayor's roundtable helps. I think our organization bringing people together helps. So being able to retain a large employer as impactful with as much of a legacy like Smithfield in this area is certainly a win for the region. And I really want to encourage people to, when we hear projects, regardless of the size of them, I mean, obviously Smithfield is probably the biggest, right? Think about the ripple effect of the economic impact too. So it's not just retaining the existing employees and the management and a new state-of-the-art facility, but what that means for the producers in the county and across the state. The other kind of added products and the other businesses that come in to make all that stuff happen, the truckers that are transporting, all of that plays a role. Even janitorial businesses and cleaning businesses that come in and need to help, maintain the conditions of certain businesses, big or small. All of that stuff adds up and makes a difference for small business owners and the economic impact for our cities and counties. So anytime those projects can happen, it's good for the region, even if it's not in your direct jurisdiction. The biggest thing, it's no secret. It seems like economic development has been a little bit under attack the last year or so. And we just try to encourage people that, we at Sioux Metro, we don't have any land, much less free land and handouts and, grants and loans that we're giving out. There is no giveaways. It's all about facilitating the right business in the right location, and then also making sure that everybody's good neighbors and that stakeholder engagement exists. And so with a project like Smithfield being close to, Crooks would be the next nearby closest community. We work closely with their team and their mayor. And the mayor was at the announcement, got invited yesterday to our biggest thing that we've talked about is just, again, having those good relationships with the city of Sioux Falls, with the governor's office, with any and all entities to make sure that if anybody does have concerns, we're going to engage. We're going to have conversations. We're going to figure it out to where we're going to make everything as much of a win as possible. So that's specific to Smithfield, but that can be translated to any and all businesses. I'm waiting for my coffee to kick in a little bit. I'm thinking about some of the other smaller wins. Again, I mentioned Schmidt's Custom Meats in Del Rapids. That's a family-owned operation that's going to have a little bit of a storefront. There's a huge need for more of those in our small towns, kind of those meat lockers and opportunities there. He's coming from Renner Corner, and they support because there's just such a backlog too. There's a couple other ones we've been really helping our communities like T and Harrisburg and Brandon for as big as they are and as much growth as they're seeing. It seems like everything follows rooftops. They're to the point of wanting more retail opportunities, more sales tax collection, more retail opportunities. I joke that every time I go around the roundabout down in Harrisburg, there's a new business that popped up. There's a McDonald's that broke ground in, I think it was late July, and it was operational in November. We know the ownership group at the local franchise owners and the management of Culver's in the area. I've been on their case for about 2 years of please look at Brandon and T in these communities. They're ripe for it. They're on the interstate. They're growing, and we were excited to get them to look at. They're opening their first location in T. They're hoping to be open by Teapot Days, and then just announced last month that Culver's is coming to Brandon now too. So those things add up. They're like 40 to 60 jobs, skills training for teens and young adults. Sales tax collection and stuff too. Manufacturers and other things. There's things of all sizes. One last thing I'll mention on that is housing developments. Traditionally our organization, I think, was focused on industrial and manufacturing. It has evolved so much into Main Street, downtown, small businesses, all the way to those large employers and everything in between. And then now it's even been housing developments. For some of our communities, we've helped them assist their first housing developments in decades, which is important for those towns if they want to be able to keep growing and they can retain their people and have a spot for their kids and grandkids to want to live in. That is just as important as it is recruiting more jobs.
I was going to comment, thank you for joining us this morning, Tyler. As you know, I've attended many of your events in the past, and it's been a great opportunity to meet local public officials and other business leaders that I probably otherwise wouldn't have met so soon. So appreciate all the work your organization does, and economic growth and prosperity doesn't help. It doesn't happen by itself, and it takes a lot of organizations like your own and others building those relationships and assisting those local municipalities to make the growth happen. These are pretty impressive figures. You know, as we all know, there's a huge amount of growth in Minnehaha County and the greater Sioux Falls area. I mean, GDP from 9.6 billion to 22.4 billion. Personal incomes have almost doubled in the area. What is the future trajectory? Are we going to be growing in a similar fashion for the next 20 years? Are things slowing down, speeding up?
I don't have a crystal ball. I'd suspect that it's gonna stay relatively the same. I think obviously with population growth, you can see exponential growth, so the curve could vary a little bit. It does seem like when things felt slow last year, that it's still better than elsewhere. And again, some of the businesses we've talked to that are looking to either expand into this market or looking at relocating into this market, it's because they see the vision 20, 40, 50 years from now. They see how strategic and responsible our communities in the county and even the big city of Sioux Falls have been with their growth before that, and how intentional we are about not being complacent, that we want to make sure we get it right so we're not looking back 25 years from now being like, I wish we would have done that different. You know, we're always going to constantly be at a fork in the road, and we want to make sure that we're on that same trajectory towards that smart growth. But I do suspect it's going to continue to, we're going to continue to see growth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Tyler. You have a great week. All right, moving on. Authorize chair to sign amendment number 2 to the MOU between Minnehaha County and South Dakota State University for 4-H programming. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Tom Greco, Commission Administrative Officer. So this is the annual contract for, as Commission Chair Karski mentioned, our agreement for 4-H within the county. This contract in particular funds a portion of a second FTE. Currently, we have 2 grade 4-H educators, Aubrey Anderson and Nathan Scatson. Nathan's here today. And this funding, again, provides a portion of that salary. This year, we're looking at a cost of $27,568, which is a modest $298 increase over last year's. If you recall, Nathan was here last November, talked about the 4-H program, what they're doing. You'll hear again from them a little later on this spring as we approach budget session. But for now, this particular agreement, this amendment, is to provide for that funding for that particular position. So I would recommend approval of it, and I am here to answer any questions, and of course Nathan is here as well.
Okay. Public comment on this agenda item. Commission, I'll turn it to you for questions or action.
I would like to make a motion to approve the MOU.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Benega.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Heisey.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Authorize the chair to sign the 2026 jail housing per diem contracts with Hutchinson, Moody, and Turner counties. Warden Mattson, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Mattson, Warden of the Jail. Before you are 3 housing contracts, Hutchinson, Moody, and Turner County. This is an annual event, so to speak, of updating the contract with the 2026 pricing, which is $131.90 per bed per day. We're not guaranteeing them any beds. This is just in the event that they need to house somebody with us, that we can bill them, and we're covered under the safeguards of the contract.
Public comment on this agenda item. Commission.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll, please.
Kipley.
Aye.
Heisey.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Consider a motion to declare Equalization Office 2008 Chevy Impala as surplus and authorize disposal by online auction through Purple Wave. Morning, Chris.
Morning, Commission. Chris Lilla, Equalization Director. Yep. Our 2008 Chevy Impala had reached its end of life. The repairs exceed the value of the vehicle. We submitted for the 2026 budget to replace that, which was approved, and we have that Equinox in our possession that we acquired through the state bid. So now that we have that, this vehicle is ready to hit the road, so we just need authorization to declare it as surplus.
Not roadworthy, though.
It'll go down the road. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. Public comment on this agenda item. Question for you, Chris.
Yes.
Trying to get rid of it, say at a Nordstrom's or local salvage yard, would we get more money, or do we take our chance? Has that been researched at all on checking these
You know, I've
things out?
sold several vehicles through Purple Wave, and I've been actually astonished that we've received more through the Purple Wave auction than what I would have ever anticipated. You know, what I thought was probably a $1,000 vehicle, we've gotten $2,500 for. So there is people out there that buy them. I don't know. There's no cost really to us to use Purple Wave, so it's very easy. They're very easy to work with. They come and take all the photos, do all the pictures, do all the advertising. I think the majority of vehicles have gone through Purple Wave in the past years through other departments. So we've had a great experience with them, and I anticipate continuing to do so.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Heisey,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Consider a motion to authorize the chair to sign Bridge Reinspection Program Resolution for use with SDDOT retainer contracts. Good morning, Jacob.
Morning, Commission. Jacob Mars, Highway Department. The resolution in front of you is for the DOT's use. Every year we go through and approve a resolution to operate under the DOT's Federal Highway Bridge Inspection Program. The DOT essentially pays 80% of our bridge inspection and then bills us for 20% of it. And we inspect our bridges every 2 years and our box culverts roughly every 4 years, depending on certain criteria. We have 195 structures through the county, and we split right down the interstate east and west for inspection every year.
Public comment on this agenda item. A quick question for you, Jacob. Unless somebody, I'll ask the first question. So the box culverts, we usually get like the interns from the engineering school to do that, right? Or is that?
That's culverts throughout the county. We have several thousand culverts that are not considered structures throughout the county. A structure is any box culvert or bridge that's 20 feet or longer as you measure along the center line of the roadway. So the summer interns that we do every 3 years are generally college students, and they inventory all of our culverts, which then gets put into our GIS system.
Okay. But we need an engineer for the bridges.
We do.
Okay.
Yep. There's a federal training program that they have to go through, and they got to be certified to do it.
Okay. Sounds good. Look for action.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kipley, second by Heisey. Please call the roll.
Kipley,
Aye.
Heisey,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Consider a motion to authorize the chair to sign an agreement between Minnehaha County and Banner Associates Incorporated for final design and construction administration of Project MC 2603 Highway 103 reconstruction. Jacob.
Jacob Mars, Highway Department again. This is County Highway 103. It's north of Sherman. It stretches from Sherman up to County Highway 11. We put a request for proposals out for this at the beginning of January. And after reviewing those, we selected Banner and Associates to provide the design on this roadway. In our budget, we have the roadway, we'll call it a reconstruction plan for 2027. For the north 2 miles, we're going to do a new process up there that would allow us to rebuild the road without purchasing right-of-way. The plan would be to put drain tile in both ditches and to fill the ditches in, but leave about a vertical foot of ditch. There isn't enough capacity in those ditches today to really provide much for snow, as it were, and then the back slopes of the ditches where they tie into the field is very steep, which also causes a lot of drifting. So the design is for surveying all 6 miles and then reconstructing the north 2 in 2027. We'll see how that process works. It would allow us to build out the road, add some extra shoulders, and not have to purchase additional right-of-way.
Public comment on this agenda item. Commission, questions or action?
I would make a motion to approve that agreement.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider a motion to authorize the chair to sign an agreement between Minnehaha County and JSA Engineers and Land Surveyors for final design and construction administration of project MC 2602 Highway 105 reconstruction. Sounds similar.
Very similar, yes. Jacob Mars Highway Department again. This is for County Highway 105 from Garrettson down to County Highway 130 or 258th Street. So that ends about 2 miles north of the interstate. This also went out, requests for proposals to several consultants, and JSA Engineers was selected due to the design on this one. They also ran the design and construction administration for County Highway 149 from Colton all the way down to Hartford. Those 2 different phases that we completed from 2016 through last year. This project would be a full reconstruction in 2028 and 2029, what's in our 5-year plan right now. There are a lot of bad hills in this area that we would be looking to cut down. We would be purchasing right-of-way out to 100 feet on this whole roadway. Just due to the topography out there, it's necessary in order to get our ditches built back in. If you drive this section, there are a lot of very steep ditches as well on this roadway, so a lot of grading will go into this project.
Okay. Public comment on this agenda. Commission.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I don't think I did public comment. Anybody want to comment? Okay, I didn't think so. All right, legislative update. Meredith, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Meredith Jarko with the Commission Office, and Chris Lillo will also be joining me today for my update. So just a couple of things to note before we dive into the slideshow is that Crossover Day is on Tuesday, February 24th, so a week from now. The deadline for new bills has passed. However, there are 14 Hog House bills that are going around right now, so those are bills that can be amended. So far, I haven't seen any amendments introduced for any of those bills, so if you'll remember last year, there was a lot of different Hog House bills flying around with amendments and being changed throughout the session, but especially right towards the end of session. So this week, we are going to be seeing a lot of movement as bills need to get out of their chamber of origin before Crossover Day on Tuesday. So as I mentioned, I have a PowerPoint for this week. Usually it's just my tracker and I give you kind of the updates, but now that the deadline for new bills has passed, decided to do a presentation just on all of the 2026 property tax legislation that's been introduced and where we kind of stand at this point in session. So a couple of bill stats for you. There were 50 property tax bills introduced, 42 are still alive, so 8 have been killed. 22 are still waiting on their first committee hearing, 10 are waiting on their the first vote in their chamber of origin, 7 have left their original chamber and are waiting on a committee hearing, and 3 are on their way to or have already been signed by the governor. And I will mention that House taxation did convene at 7:45 this morning, and I was before the meeting I was able to catch that one of the bills made it out of committee. They were still working on a second one when our commission meeting started, but that first bill that made it out of committee was House Bill 1308, which would reduce certain property taxes for owner-occupied property and to increase the rates for certain gross receipts tax and use taxes. And I just wanted to mention this one off the bat because there were members on the committee that did state that it may not be the proposal that they are most in favor of or they think is the fix for some of the property tax issues that the legislature has been discussing, but that they want to get as many proposals to the entire House floor so that those can be discussed. So that was just the House Taxation Committee. I'm not sure if Senate Taxation Committee will have the same viewpoint, but just kind of a little note there that House Taxation this morning at least was just wanting to get as many decent proposals. Obviously, if there are some bills that have too many issues or would not fix the problem, they tend to defer those to the 41st day, but they're trying to get more proposals out to the House floor just to get a larger consensus from their entire chamber. Of all of the property tax bills that have been introduced, there's a couple of major themes. The big theme is changing the process for or capping assessments. Last year, in Senate Bill 216 that was passed, we saw that there was the cap on the total value of owner-occupied assessments cannot raise more than 3%. And Chris will speak more to this when he comes up, but there have been some bills introduced that try and dial that down on an individual property level instead of the total valuation. The next would be changing the source of funding, and that kind of falls into two buckets. So replacing certain property tax levies with a different tax, and then there's also the option that they're throwing around that it would provide property tax rebates and credits with funding from other taxes. So taxing districts would still levy property taxes, and then those rebates and credits would come after the fact. At least in that first year, and then there are some that like offset our property tax levies as well. The next bucket is providing additional property tax relief and exemptions for certain groups. We saw a few of those last year, but this year there are quite a handful of different program update proposals that are being thrown around. And then finally, the last theme, and it's a little bit smaller changes here and there, but changing certain processes related to tax district budgeting, petitions, et cetera. That's kind of a catch-all miscellaneous theme. So assessment-related bills. Currently, there are still 6 bills that are alive. Most focus on capping assessments increase year over year. And one of the bills is a joint resolution. So if it were to be passed, it wouldn't go into effect. It would result in a ballot question for the 2026 election. And if voters approved that, then it would go into effect. But I will pass it over to Chris for the next couple slides.
Morning, Commission. Again, Chris Lilla, Equalization Director. There's a lot being thrown against the wall out in Pierre right now. Hopefully not a lot of it sticks. There's a couple of good ideas. Many, in my opinion, are atrocious. I don't know what everyone's perception of California is, but we're South Dakota. I don't think we want California here. From my office's perspective, any of these, right now, Senate Bill 216 capped the increase as a total class of owner-occupied property at 3%. This year, our market changes exceeded that. I have to roll, or you will be receiving, if you were owner-occupied, whatever your value would have been, we have to roll that value back about 1.1% this year. That is achievable through our current software systems. It does have an impact. It is going to cause a shift in budgeting to take the loss of value. It's a teeter-totter. If you add more weight on one side, the other side comes up and goes down. Right now, we're decreasing the owner-occupied from what it should be, 1.1%. That's going to lift the other side, which is all of the commercial and non-owner-occupied rental property. That is going to increase the burden of levies on those. So anytime you give a discount to one, you're asking someone else to pick up that difference. However, that being said, Senate Bill 216, I was not in favor of last year. For valuation and processes, it is manageable. we are able to achieve that through our software on a mass scale. Again, it's the total value of owner occupied within the county. So I can adjust all owner occupied property. Most of the bills coming out this year are drilling that down to a micro level to the individual property, meaning your house cannot go up more than 3%. That's Proposition 13 in California. That's where that sits. What happens, and most of these have the stipulation in them that your property can't go up more than 3% unless there's a major remodel or addition to the property, which is pretty much common sense. The flip side of that is when that property sells, it resets basically that base value of that property. So now you have two properties that sit side by side identical. One has sold and it sells at true market value. That is going to be taxed now at that base value, where the other one is limited to a 3% increase. This creates unequal assessments, unequal tax burdens. It is very problematic in my systems to manage and put into actual resolution of that. You know, we've got about 65,000 individual properties that are now have to be looked at on an individual basis to look at their value limitation. I don't know how we're going to achieve it if any of this comes forward. Obviously, we'll figure something out, but this is very problematic. Some of the bills, I'll just go through a couple of them. H. Bill 1193 is an act to require that a county provide a refund of taxes to disabled veterans. We already do that when we get an application from somebody, say they got their award letter now, that they are 100% backdated because the VA is always behind, effective last year. When we get that application for disabled vet, we do go back to their effective date and do that. I don't think a lot of counties do. So I'm in favor of this. I think this is just cleaning up across the state to make us all uniform on whether you qualify for an abatement or not. So I'm in favor of that. We already do that and have been doing that for many, many years. So there's no impact to Minnehaha County for that one. H. Bill 1241 is just an act to increase the amount of veterans exemption. Again, if you're permanently and totally disabled right now and you apply, the first $200,000 of value is exempt from, once you're approved, from taxation. This increases it to 225. Again, we already have that process in place. There's no real impact to us. The only concerns I have again with that are you give a discount to some, you're asking others to make up that difference. House Bill 1253, an act to adjust the assessment methodology of owner-occupied single-family dwellings and non-agricultural property by considering previous year's assessed values. This, in a nutshell, is taking our current ag valuation system and putting it on the non-ags. What this is it uses an 8-year Olympic average. So we look at what we would do is we would look at the current market trends and what we need to do as a mass. And let's just say this year it says everyone needs to go up 3% because the market has increased 3%. That's the current. What we would do then is have to keep track of the previous 7 years. We would throw out the best year, throw out the worst year, average the other 6 years. So if that average says we need to go up 5%, this year you only need to go up 3, but the average says 5, everyone has to go up 5. I am not in favor of this for many reasons. One is we localize where the demand is, where that market factors are. We might have, and I'll just use 2 towns. We'll just say Brandon City has to go up 5% because their sales the demand has increased 5%, and you have Hartford that has to go down 3%. Well, if I look at the Olympic average and everyone has to go up 5, everyone has to go up 5. So maybe we don't exceed in Brandon, but now where we would have had to take a market area down due to the market, 3%, now they have to go up 5. I am not sure how I could defend any of those valuations in a court of law, where literally every sale that occurred, my values would be 5% at minimum over what they just recently sold for. And I would have to go and defend our valuations. This is a horrible, terrible idea. Hopefully this one goes to the wayside. House Bill 1307, again, it limits the annual increase. It's similar to the other one. We have problems with that one as well, where it's limiting the increase on an individual property. Another example that I put in my presentation here is just, let's just say that our office discovered an error on the property. They've been getting a discount for some time in relations to others. An example would be maybe they have basement finish sometime 2 years ago, somebody clicked wrong in the computer, we wiped that basement finish out, so they haven't been getting valuation for that. Now we discover that, we can't even put that in because we're limited to their previous year's value over 3%. It's just problematic. House Bill 1312, an act to limit annual valuation increases on single-family dwellings and provide an exemption to the mill rate. Again, it's similar to Proposition 13, where it would hold those values down until a property sells, and it would reset that. There's multiple of these going on. One point I would like to make is our valuation system is not broken, nor was our ag system before we went to productivity. Keep something functional. You have to keep the foundation active, not keep two sets of books, not keep what was the value, what is the limited value, and always have to keep what would be the real value of that property in the event it transfers. Very problematic. Not in favor of any of that. Senate Bill 126, an act to increase the amount of value of veterans exemptions. I think this one here was it 350,000? Just to increase it from 200 to 350. Again, not totally opposed to it. The only concern I have is when you give a discount to somebody, you're asking someone else to make up that difference. Senate Bill 154, an act to clarify eligibility of multiple garages or structures to be classified as owner occupied. I am strongly in favor of this bill. As the statute is written to qualify for owner occupancy, you get it on the house, and as the verbiage says, a garage attached or unattached. Some counties, it's about a 50-50 mix through the state that read into the letter of that law. So if you have your house and your attached garage and you have another detached garage on your property, they split that improvement value out and give you owner occupancy rate on the attached, the house. On the detached garage that sits on that property, they get the not owner occupied rate. Coming from Brookings, we did it on everything on that property that is owner occupied. We've done it here. Again, some counties split that. It's very problematic to, my CAMA system reports improvement value. Now, if I have to go into that value and say, 200,000 of the value is the house and 30,000 of the value is a detached garage that doesn't qualify, I have to separate those out manually, put those into the system manually and split that and reclass that. Again, we've got 65,000 of these that have multiple. It's very contradictory in the law, the way it is written. It doesn't mention yard sheds. So the question I posed last year when I testified on this is, so should that yard shed be owner occupied or not? It doesn't say. Right now, we call it owner occupied. It further goes on to say that if you have an adjoining lot or lots that are under the common ownership with the same use, and they can be not just adjoining, but separated by a street or alley. So if you've got a house and a lot here, and across the alley, you've got another lot, you can get it on that lot. That is considered owner occupancy. But now the problem lies, we have a garage on that lot, but you have a garage here. That garage over here can't be. This makes no sense. And I put in the per SDCL 214-6, which is the law, one of the beginning foundations of the law on how to interpret all the codified laws. It states right in there, where singular is used, it also means plural, and where plural is used, it also means singular. So, again, I think this is just a common sense bill. I'm strongly in favor of it. Senate Bill 208, an act to require the award of certain disbursements to prevailing owners and taxpayers in appeals of property assessments. I'm in favor of this. This basically is stating that if somebody challenges a value and we end up going to court, and they have some skin in the game, if they take us and it's really a frivolous action and they lose, that we can seek attorney reimbursement fees. I think it was only going, Eric maybe knows, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think it went one way and not the other prior, and now it's going the other way. So I think we haven't ended up in court. We've gone to OHE several times since I've been here. We have not gone to court with the exception of one case, and that really was a frivolous things. So I think having the taxpayer put some skin in the game, that if you really truly believe it, go for it, challenge it. If it's wrong and you prevail, then you can seek attorney's fees. That's always been in the books, but this reverses that. So I think that's a good bill. Senate Bill 216, an act to limit valuation increases on owner-occupied single-family dwellings. Again, it's same as all the others. It's an attempt to bring Proposition 13 here. It gets too micro. I don't know how we would facilitate that on an individual house, but, and then Senate Joint Resolution proposing and submitting to the voters the next general election an amendment to the Constitution, again, limiting the assessed value. As Meredith had mentioned, this is just to put it on for an election for a ballot measure. Again, it's Proposition 13, limiting valuation, requiring our office to maintain 2 sets of books, what the real value would be, what it's limited to. I'm so totally opposed to this. I can't even fathom that. My concern is if this does get put on the ballot, who wouldn't, that stays in their house, want their property value to remain stagnant and limited? I think it would go very well. I don't think you're looking at the long-term effects of that and the budgeting of that, where it's only if you hold the values down, it's going to increase the demand on the mill levies to fill the budgets. It isn't going to be a tax discount. And then the minute that property sells, you've got 2 people sitting side by side. That new owner or a first-time home buyer is going to be taxed to the hilt as opposed to somebody who happens to have lived in that property. Our system is not broken. Our valuation system is meant to be fair and equal, to equally disperse that. And I am just appalled that there's people and legislators trying to break what isn't broken. I've always said, leave the values alone. If you want to tax it different, tax it different. But let me tell you the true market value. Let me tell you the equalized value. Let me tell you the real worth of your property as opposed to a property like yours in another area and things like that. So that's kind of my 2 cents on everything. Take it or leave it. I will be putting out my thoughts to legislators and probably testifying again this year with the commission's blessing on some of these. That's really all I have unless there's questions.
Finish my slides.
Okay.
Stand by for questions, Chris.
All right. Next up, major theme, bills that impact funding sources. So as I mentioned, that kind of falls into 2 different buckets. 5 of those bills would alter certain levies, and 9 bills are related more to providing that property tax rebate or a credit. And again, one of the bills is a joint resolution that would result in a ballot question for the 2026 election. So changing levies, I'll just kind of run through these quickly. House Bill 1308, which I mentioned made it out of house taxation. That would reduce the school district mill levy for owner occupied to 0. It would increase sales tax to 4.7% for fiscal year 2027, and then up to 5% for fiscal year 2028 and on. Senate Joint Resolution 507, it would be on the 2026 ballot, but that would be a 0 school district mill levy as well for owner occupied and increase the sales tax to 5%. So the only difference between that and 1308 is that it goes on the ballot and it wouldn't have that 1 year of the 4.7% sales tax. Senate Bill 243, that would impose a transaction tax of $1.50 or 10% for purchases under $15. And this is kind of a tiered disbursement. So relief would first go to owner occupied, then ag, then non-ag properties. General fund supplementation, Senate Bill 199 supplements levies with 25% of the annual increase in general fund monies from fiscal year 2025 to 2026. And then also a flat rate. I apologize, in this section there were 2 joint resolutions that would go to the 2026 ballot. So Joint Resolution 506 would be on the 2026 ballot, and that would reset all of the values. In the bill, it goes a little bit more in depth of what those reset to, but it would reset all of the values on property, and it would limit tax increases to 1% if you're residing in the state, and 2% for those who don't meet that residency requirement but own a property. For property tax rebates and credits, there's a couple here. So House Bill 1261, that would be moving over $60 million from their reserves and providing one-time credits that are the lesser of your total tax bill, or $500, I believe. Senate Bill 118, Senate Bill 118 would deposit certain tax revenues into a homeowner tax reduction fund. And Senate Bill 125 and 212 go along with that. Those are just bills that create the homeowner tax reduction fund, but those monies would be from sales tax. House Bill 1168, that would be for those who have children in non-public school that have tuition, they could receive a credit towards their property tax bill for their school levy. There are two proposals right now that involve gambling. So Senate Bill 226 just increases some of the limits on our current video lottery system in South Dakota, and that relief would be targeted towards owner-occupied. And then Senate Joint Resolution 5004, that is Representative Jameson's proposal that online sports betting be allowed. And in that bill, it just simply states that 10% of the revenues from that would go to Deadwood and 90% would be used for property tax relief. So not laid out if that would be specifically owner-occupied, if it would be broken up equally among all the classes, but again, that would go onto the ballot in the fall of '26. And then just two new programs, HB 1260, that just allows municipalities to establish a rebate program. And then Senate Bill 96, I've talked about this one a lot, the Governor's County sales tax proposal, that will be heard in Senate taxation tomorrow at 10 a.m. So that had been introduced for a while, but hadn't been referred to committee. So, and as a reminder, the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners does officially support that bill. That would be a county sales tax that each individual county could decide to levy. The commission could vote to implement that sales tax, or the citizens could petition a vote to happen to have the sales tax, but also if the commission passes a sales tax, that can also be referred by the voters. But that tax would offset owner-occupied property tax, and if there was left over, then it would equally be split between ag and non-ag. I'll go over these quickly since Chris touched on some of these, but property tax relief and exemptions, there's a handful of disabled veterans programs that just kind of increase those limits. On Senate Bill 126, I did double check that. Originally, the bill was introduced to increase the value to $350,000, but it was amended down to $300,000. So that would increase from $200 to $300.
Meredith?
Yep.
Quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Nope, that's okay.
Senate Bill 96, is there a limit on the amount of owner-occupied reduction? I mean, you got a $2 million house and you got a $300,000 house. Obviously, the taxes aren't the same. Is there a cap on the amount that would apply back, or do we know any of these things?
Not that I'm aware of. From how I understand the bill is that, let's say the taxes raised are 80% of the owner-occupied property taxes in the county, everyone would get a equal percentage, that 80%, reduced off of their bill. But if let's say the sales tax raised $5 million more than our owner-occupied, all owner-occupied, the county levy on their bill, would be zero, and then that extra $5 million would be equally distributed between ag and non-ag. So,
Okay, so no limit.
Yes, so disabled veterans, there's a couple of bills out there that just kind of increase the values. Same with our current elderly disabled program. There's a bill, Senate Bill 196, to increase that income limit for a multi-member family home to $85,000. If you'll remember last year, the individual income, the single member household and the multi-member household, those income limits did increase last year, and it's written into law that they will increase each year by the index factor. So there is already a mechanism in there to have those values increase, but this would increase that multi-member from, I believe right now it's a little over 65 with the index factor that was just applied, but that would increase that to 85 for if you qualify for everything else under those provisions of the elderly and disabled tax freeze program, it would increase your income max. Senate Bill 20 appropriates $425,000 of general fund money for refunds from the state. That one still has not been heard in appropriations yet, so keeping our eye on that one. One that I would like to call out, Senate Bill 144. This was a bill, it was introduced last year, and I believe it was shot down in committee. But this would be a tax freeze for those who are 65 and older, have owned their owner-occupied residence for 10 consecutive years. They've been a resident of the state for 25 years, and they have no delinquent taxes. But I just like to call that one out because that one doesn't have any income requirements. So anyone that meets all of those other requirements could, I believe, apply and receive a tax freeze. And then House Bill 1259, not that it necessarily is something that we have to do, but the DOR to provide online applications for tax relief programs. So that would maybe just make some of these processes a little bit easier for folks that are applying each year. Next bucket, major theme, updating processes. So there are a few bills that would require public hearings or petitions or change the appeals process when it comes to opt-outs and things like that. Senate Bill 183, that would require all taxing districts, so school districts, counties, cities, townships, any taxing district to publish in the legals 21 days prior to an opt-out vote, and also either send electronically via email or a physical mailer to all property tax owners that there would be a property tax opt-out vote coming up at a meeting. Currently, we do, whenever there is an opt-out vote, we do notice that on our agenda, but having to send out individual physical mailers would be an added cost to our budget. So I just wanted to highlight that one. And then some of these other bills that I have listed are just little things here and there that would just aren't as big of an impact to our process. So 1088 removes some outdated municipality remittance things. 1317, that was introduced earlier in the session and was shot down and then was introduced again. That just removes the 3-year limit on our index factor accumulation. We'll see if that one makes it out of committee or not. But Senate Bill 97, that's to adjust the cap on the growth factor. That's been deferred by the Senate the past couple of days. There are a couple of different amendments out there right now to change that, so we'll be keeping an eye to see where that kind of lands on the Senate floor, if it's passed amended, not amended, but that would address the cap on the growth factor that was introduced last year with the passage of Senate Bill 216. I know that was a lot. I'll stand by for questions. And again, I know this was and Chris will also stand by for questions. I know this was a property tax presentation, but if there are also any questions on any of the bills in my tracker, would be happy to cover those for you as well.
Thank you, Meredith. We do take public comment on all our agenda items. Anybody who want to address the commission on this legislative update? Commission, I'll turn it over to you if you have questions or comments. Commissioner Benega.
Chris, I just have a quick question. I've gotten a few calls about the exemptions for veterans and seniors and disabled individuals for this year. And I know that it dramatically changed those limits last year in the legislature. Now there's some confusion on how that's affecting their taxes for next year, if that makes sense, because they're seeing all kinds of publicity, of course, which none of it at this point makes too much sense. There's no explanation on how they're going to fund certain things, which in the county's circumstances, 90% of our budget is required by the state. They haven't addressed that. Do you have any idea how we can clarify some of the stuff the exemptions cover and what the requirements are to meet those requirements without going into mass mailings and whatever? I mean, I don't want it to be a load on the your department, but hopefully it'll get straightened out. But so far, it's just more confusing every time it's discussed.
Yeah, I think the veterans has been already stable. I don't think there's any difference in that. The big increase was the elderly and disabled tax freeze.
Yep.
Hopefully there's not a lot of confusion out there. It is still the same process as what it was. The only thing that has really changed is it has opened up the door to more people that can qualify. And I would encourage anybody that's living on a fixed income to at least inquire either with the treasurer's office or my office. This is actually a program that's run through the treasurer's office. So we were anticipating, just with the increase of the home valuation and the income limitation, that we would probably see about a 50% increase in eligible applicants here. As far as public outreach, I know there's been some through Department of Revenue put out there. Also on the back of every assessment notice that is, and those were being printed yesterday. They should be probably hitting the mail today or tomorrow. On the back of every one lists all of the potential exemptions that property owners may qualify for. So again, it's on the back. It really is the responsibility of homeowner. And I know I've had a lot of people coming in this year when they got their tax bills, questioning taxes, and they weren't aware of it. As they've came in, I've sat down with them and went through their value, their tax bills, and then I look at them and say, I'm going to go out on a ledge here and say that you might be over 65, and then I ask them the questions of their income, and of course they don't know, and that's really out of my lane. But then I'm like, okay, here's the guidelines, here's the stipulation. I send them over to the treasurer's office to figure out what they need to bring in. So I don't know how we reach out to that other than keep doing what we're doing. It's on the back of every assessment notice, so hopefully people look at those. My envelopes say in red assessment notice. It's an important document people need to take into account when they get that, not to just file it away. Look at it. It's an important document. And hopefully word gets out on the street. And I think it has been. I don't know. I wish Chris Swanson was here to know if there's been a major uptick with applications. I'm assuming there is. I commend their office for setting up and out of the box thinking here. I just noticed it this morning coming up here that their office isn't overwhelmed if there's tax disabled freeze applications or questions, that they've separated that out of their office. I think that is tremendous, and I'll give props where they're due. So
Thank you.
On that note, we've had several individuals throughout the meeting pass this hallway going to apply for this elderly tax freeze. I did have a question for you, Chris. I know you have a lot of concerns about any property tax reforms that deal with capping valuations or setting those in a certain fashion. What are your thoughts or feelings about some of the reforms that would increase, say, a sales tax? Or remit money from the state directly, or put money into a fund and then give it directly to counties for property tax relief. How do you feel about those options?
I'm not opposed to those. I give Governor Roden some credit. Last year on Senate Bill 216, when that was first proposed, I was not in favor of it. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks after that he proposed saying that we're going to reduce the owner occupied and then we're going to fill that bucket back up with the sales tax. I'm not opposed to that. I think it's a very noble effort and I think there's some validity to it. I do have concerns with that you're giving a reduction of valuation or tax reduction to owner occupied. And I should back up and just state for the record and for everybody that the difference between owner occupied and not owner occupied or agricultural only falls in the state's school aid formula funding. It's really the state that is determining that separation of classes. Otherwise, if you have a valuation, it doesn't matter what it is, that full valuation, the county gets the same amount of money. There is no separation between owner occupied and not, or agriculture. The cities, they get no separation of that. It's only in how the state calculates the amount of school aid that comes into play. So from my perspective, if the state wants to meddle in this, then meddle on it on their end and leave everything else alone. But I think that is noble to say that we're going to give a discount in owner occupied. And from a personal owner occupied homeowner, I'm in favor of receiving a discount. But from my position administering all valuations, I don't think that's fair and equal. To reduce that bucket would alternatively increase the amount due to non-owner occupied. It would not go over to agricultural because that's a separated system in the school aid funding. So if we lessen the amount we receive from owner occupied, it's going to increase the amount needed from non-owner occupied. So that's problematic. Now, if you're going to lessen the amount from owner occupied, but you're going to collect it in a sales tax, a half-cent or a half-penny sales tax to refill that isn't going to cause a shift to the others. That makes sense to me. The downside of that is you're non-owner occupied, and I'm just going to speak hypothetically here. You're non-owner occupied, your rental properties are your low income earners. They don't make enough income to buy that owner occupied home. And so now you're going to impose every dollar they spend another half-cent sales tax on them. It's a regressive sales tax. It's going to hit your lowest earners the hardest. Now, the upside of that is, and it's pretty minute because then you're going to use all of the out-of-state money, the tourism money, everything that comes in from people that aren't vested here that are going to be contributing sales tax to help keep that down. So I'm not totally opposed to it. I'm just looking out for the little guys that every dollar they spend is a bigger percentage out of their income to give the wealthier, the people that can afford to own their properties, a discount. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's a good idea. It's a good starting point, if nothing else, in my opinion.
And just to follow up, say hypothetically, some kind of sales tax rebate was passed in the legislature. Is that going to affect anything as it relates to your office, or are you still going to be evaluating all the properties just like you did in the past? And you may have to do some arithmetic to figure out where that money is going to be going
Again,
to.
I would be more in favor of something like that. Let me tell you the true value. It really, if you're going to do a rebate because there's a surplus someplace or they can find money someplace to give a rebate, that's on the tax side, not the valuation side. And I'm in favor of anything that keeps the valuation side fair, equal, accurate. And again, as I stated, don't mess with the values. You got to keep the foundation stable. After that, if you want to tax it differently, if you want to rebate, if you want to credit, if you want, do it there, not on the valuation. Let me tell you the true value of your property.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Irony, at least seems like irony to me, that a lot of these programs are intended to reduce taxes, but the reality is they're putting a greater burden on the county. We have to hire more people to implement these programs. For example, Senate Bill 183, a mailing to every property owner. What's the cost of that?
Just my assessment notices, one-time mailing is going to cost probably $25,000 in envelopes, postage, letters, things like that. It's expensive.
Yeah. So Meredith, did you have some?
Yeah, I would just say the last property tax bill notices were just shy of 50,000. So it would be another, yep.
So if we had to mail out a notice to everybody on a hearing or whatever, at 50 grand, I mean,
Correct.
that's increasing what we're trying to decrease. I mean, taxes are obviously used to pay those expenses of the county. I mean, most of these things, me on my bully pulpit, are a shell game. I mean, we're just moving things around, and the unintended consequences, and I think, Chris, that's where you were going with a lot of this stuff of what could happen, and, the outcomes could be catastrophic to the market system and how homes are valued. It's a lot of solutions looking for problems. That, what is the problem? Well, it's not property taxes are too high, it's the expenses that the county has to pay for that are mandated by the state. As Commissioner Benninga says, 90% of what we do are mandated by the state. So it's not the taxes are too high, it's the expenses are too high, and that's where the taxes go. We talk about, the reductions in seniors and veterans, and I am totally for all these things, but we're not reducing taxes. We're shifting it to, as you said, to the people that are able to pay, that don't qualify for those taxes. And the ones that pay the most are those that are living in non-owner occupied, those renters, those low-income people that they don't see that tax reduction on those. That property owner has to pay the full property tax, which is typically 25% higher than the owner occupied. I'm a free market guy. I'm a capitalist. I think we need to let the market do what the market does when it comes to assessing values. And a lot of these things, I see conflict with current statute that says we have to appraise them for their market value, unless I'm misunderstanding the way some of the laws are currently written.
You're exactly right, and that's what some of the other things, limiting 3%. If we have a boom session, and people bring up COVID-19 as an anomaly, and it was. I mean, it increased. The problem is it didn't decrease from that. It increased again. And it didn't decrease from that. It increased again. Now, the amount of increase is smaller. It has been dwindling down. It's kind of like a bell curve, but it's still a compounding increase. Values have not decreased. They've increased. Exponentially over that. It's 5% of 18%, and it's 3% of that. Mm-hmm. The problem lies where it's going to run into, if you cap me at 3%, I am still legally mandated by state law to assess at 85% minimum. If I need to go up 10 and I can only go up 3, that's going to start me lower, and we can get by with that for a year. The next year, because I'm starting lower and it says now I've got to go up 15 because I really only have to go up 5, but I had to go up to 10, but I was limited, and now I have to go up another 5, that's going to drive me down because I'm limited. There's going to come a point where my assessments will not reach that 85% level, the bottom. And when it reaches the bottom, it's all for naught, because if I've got to go up 8% then to get to 85, I have to go up 8. Even if I'm limited to 3. So there is a lot of
conflict,
of malignant cancer going on right now.
Okay. So, all right. Any other additional comments from commissioners? Okay. Chris, Meredith, a lot going on. Appreciate it. And this is mostly a property tax update, but that's where a lot of the attention is. And again, solutions looking for problems. All right, moving on. Opportunity for public comment. Anybody from the public would like to address the commission on any non-agenda item? All right. We do have an executive session, so I'd look for a motion. What did I do? Oh, liaison reports. Commission liaison reports. All right. We're going to go to executive session. Okay. Executive session. So I'd look for a motion to enter an executive session for the purposes of South Dakota Codified Law 125(2), 1, 3, 4, and 6.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are going to executive session next door.